For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against
the terrible events of September.
There shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows.
I am concerned about avian flu. I'm concerned about what an avian flu outbreak could mean for the United States and the world.
When we think about what happened on September 11th, the facts make us think about terrorism and if, when, and how it could happen again. When we read about outbreaks of H5N1 bird flu virus in birds in the past few years around the world, it leads us to think we're facing the beginning of a pandemic, an event that could indiscriminately kill millions of people all around the world. Could terrorists use the highly pathogenic H5N1 bird flu virus as a bioterrorist agent? Everyone in the world is talking about bird flu, but most scientists, doctors, and politicians in the United States don't want to talk about this matter. There is an economic issue. Drug, oil, food, and finance companies control the United States. They control our economy. They control our politicians. There's not a democracy in the United States. Corporations make laws and dictate the rules for our lives. KFC, Tyson, and Butterball don't want you to know about bird flu. They spend millions of dollars in marketing, public relations, and advertising. These corporations and congressional members in D.C. have great connections and often promiscuous relationships. Media cannot blame only Republicans for these unhealthy partnerships. When Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas, where Tyson, the largest American meat producer, is based, there were allegations of influence peddling in the state government, aggravated by the fact that the governor's wife, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, also served as a lawyer for Tyson. Over the last few years, federal officials have accused Tyson of violating labor, environmental, animal welfare, and civil rights laws, as well as making illegal gifts to a cabinet secretary. A few years ago, Congress passed the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, well known as AETA. This bill was introduced and pushed by big businesses for big business. AETA protects the interests of animal enterprises such as the National Pork Producers Association, Pfizer Drug Company, and other pharmaceutical corporations that engage in cruel and unnecessary animal testing. McDonald's and other fast food corporations that profit from the sale of factory-farmed animals for food, and Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, and other cosmetic companies that often abuse animals to test and retest their latest line of beauty products. AETA is only concerned with corporate America, not the American people. Senator Dianne Feinstein was a sponsor of this bill. Democrat Feinstein created more rights for the corporations that strive to keep the secrets of their work from entering public scrutiny while demonizing public outcries. With this corporate agenda in mind, the senator from California sponsored the bill with the right wing. Have you heard about bird flu? If an influenza pandemic struck today, borders would close, the global economy would shut down, international vaccine supplies and healthcare systems would be overwhelmed, and panic would reign. To limit the fallout, the industrialized world must create a detailed response strategy involving the public and private sectors. A surprisingly large number of people around the world see in bird flu and mad cow disease a sign that the end of the world is coming soon. The United States is better positioned today to detect early an outbreak of pandemic flu, to support an international effort to contain the pandemic in its earliest stages, to limit the spread of a pandemic, and to save millions of lives. A new research paper has been published in the United States proving that bird flu, which has so far only killed people in its pure form, is capable of combining with conventional human flu viruses. A mutated virus combining human flu and bird flu is the nightmare strain that scientists fear could create a worldwide pandemic. The pure bird flu strain, H5N1, has caused hundreds of deaths recently around the world. Some leaders are talking about bird flu. England is taking serious steps to prevent this attack. A pandemic flu bug would pose a greater threat to England than terrorism, according to official papers. The British government has recognized that deaths from global flu will be on a scale far beyond anything related to such an attack. Until now, the official list of threats and risks facing England had been kept confidential. Prime Minister Gordon Brown announced plans to publish a risk register, and at the top of that list is pandemic flu. British people are saying that it's not a question of if, but when, and that it could kill 750,000 people in less than 24 hours. Brown said the greatest threat facing England is neither a terror attack nor climate change, but a flu pandemic. Are bird flu and mad cow disease a fulfillment of Jesus' prophecy about plagues in the end times? Pope Benedict XVI has spoken movingly about the exploitation of all beings, particularly of farm animals. Cardinal Ratzinger said animals are God's creatures, and it's contrary to human dignity to cause animals to suffer or die needlessly. People may not be aware that nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus was predicting events like the outbreak of bird flu and mad cow disease that would unfold in our time and place. Health officials have warned that the risk of a human influenza pandemic remains real and is probably growing as the bird flu virus becomes entrenched in poultry in more countries. More than 150 experts attended a meeting hosted by the World Health Organization in Geneva to update its guidance to countries on how to survive and defeat this deadly global epidemic. The H5N1 avian flu virus has infected flocks in much of Asia, Africa, and parts of Europe. American scientists fear it could mutate into a form that passes easily from person to person, sparking an influenza pandemic that could kill millions. According to many scientists, the risk of a pandemic remains and is probably expanding. They emphasize that the highly pathogenic H5N1 virus has persisted on 3 continents and has caused human cases in Indonesia, Egypt, and China. Scientists have realized that the spread through migratory birds hasn't stopped. They say once the virus is established in birds, it's difficult to get rid of the virus and the risk to contaminated human beings. The avian flu virus rarely infects people, but there have been 387 human cases worldwide since 2003, 245 of them fatal. Infected people can shed the virus before symptoms appear, and this increases the risk of international spread through asymptomatic air travelers. Most countries have drawn up pandemic plans, but the level of preparedness varies. 16 companies are working on vaccines to prevent bird flu infection in people. Most British scientists accuse the British government of being very relaxed. They're also critical of the government's optimistic attitude to a potentially devastating pandemic, comparing it to the complacency over bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE, commonly known as mad cow disease, MCD, a decade ago. British scientists say the number of deaths has been greatly underestimated. They expect the flu, like the 1918 pandemic that killed more people than the First World War, to cause the deaths of many people from pneumonia. Experts warn that illness in health workers could be the first sign the disease has begun to be infectious in humans, bringing a pandemic much closer. Pandemics occur when a new virus spreads rapidly among people with little or no immunity. In the U.S., Minnesota is taking serious steps to prepare for the attack. The state has stockpiled about 85% of the antiviral medication it's entitled to buy from drug companies to prepare for an avian flu attack. Minnesota has already spent more than $4 million on antiviral drugs. U.S. and other Western intelligence agencies are working with highly classified information indicating Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organizations are planning attacks using biotechnology. These plans are said to call for squads of suicide-willing terrorists who would deliberately infect themselves with a human-transmittable strain of bird flu or a human-transmissible form bioengineered to be easily passed between humans, and then to spread the virus as widely around the world as they can by traveling on one international flight after another. While in the United States, investigators from People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, documented numerous acts of egregious and sadistic cruelty to animals at a Butterball turkey slaughterhouse in Ozark, Arkansas. A terror exacerbated